Happy thumbs up. Great spot. Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I'm ready.
Canadian Space Agency, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call Station for a voice check.
Station, this is Ottawa in the Canada Aviation and Space Museum. How do you hear us?
Bob, I have you loud and clear. How do you do, my friend?
Bonjour, David. It's good to be speaking with you. Plusieurs élèves d'Ottawa et moi, nous étions en train d'effectuer une séance.
And myself, we were exercising with our friend Natalie Hirsch. Natalie.
Hi, David. It's really great to see you. We've been doing an exercise session, and we have 2 more exercises to do, and we're hoping you can join us.
Very good, sure. So you guys have been seeing how strict Coach Natalie is. She's my coach up here, and she keeps me in good shape.
So we're going to do 2 more exercises. The first one is one where we're going to stretch the front of our legs. So you're going to take one leg. Yep, everybody can stand up and try this. That's great. So 1 foot behind so that your heel is touching your butt, and you should feel a good stretch in the front of your leg. And we're going to wait for David to give us a demo as well. Good job, David. Okay, and we can switch legs, and as you can see, it's much easier in space. Okay, we'll do one more exercise, and this one is a figure 4. So for all of us on the ground, we're going to cross one ankle over our other knee to make a figure 4 with our legs, and then we're going to sit backwards like we're sitting in a chair again. This is another good balance exercise. All right. It looks so much easier in space, doesn't it? Wow. Okay, and let's do it with the other leg. All right. Great job, everyone. Thanks, David, for the demo.
Thanks, Natalie. Merci, David, for the out-of-this-world exercise demo. David, I don't want to interrupt your Zen moment, but we have a couple of questions for you. David, I'm just wondering if you would describe some of the exercises that you have been doing in space to counter the effects of weightlessness.
So basically, our exercise regime here is comprised of 4 things, I guess. Stretching, of course, which is very important. You got a good demonstration of this today. It's a bit different than on Earth, but we do it. It's very important. And then we're going to keep our cardiovascular system strong. We have a stationary bicycle that's very similar to being on Earth, except you don't have a seat. You don't need to sit down, of course. And another one is a treadmill. So you can practice running That's important for two things. First, because we wear a harness with strong springs to kind of bring us down. It adds weight to our spine, our skeletal system, our bones, and keeps them strong. And also, it keeps you practicing the movement you need to be walking and running so that when you come back to Earth, you remember how to walk. And third, we have a general purpose kind of weightlifting machine. Of course, it's not weights, because that would be very easy, right, with dumbbells in space. Instead, we're fighting against the pressure in a piston. And that's what we use to keep training our upper body, shoulders, arms, the legs, the calves, every muscle in our body we can work out with this amazing machine called AirEd. And thanks to that, we come back to Earth. And I don't know what your experience was, Bob, but I'm hoping to come back to Earth feeling that I'm not weakened by this stay in space.
A good question. Do you find that your body, after 2 months in space now, has adapted? Has your mind, your muscles, your heart, has it adapted to life in zero-G?
Completely, quite a change. When I got here, it was actually very funny because as soon as I was upside down, I was lost. I didn't know where to go. And I was a very bad flyer initially, like most astronauts for the first time, crashing into the walls everywhere as I move around. Now I can navigate very quickly and know where I am and never break anything. And also, I find that I started out very congested. When you're standing on the Earth, the pull of gravity brings most of your blood down, and your body is trained to push harder to bring blood to your head. When you reach space, you don't have that bias anymore, if you want, the effect of gravity. And so, but the body keeps pushing harder towards the head, so you get a big, red, puffy head and tiny, white, skinny legs. But after a while, that fades away, and you become normal again, so even the congestion is gone. So yeah, after 2 months, I feel like this is normal now. Like there's nothing to it.
We talked about weightlessness, the effect of weightlessness on the muscles and the bones, but it's not the only factor that affects your health in orbit. Ionizing radiation is another concern. I know that on Earth, the atmosphere protects us against radiation, but have you experienced radiation in space? Have you done any monitoring of radiation levels?
So yes, we are not protected here by by our atmosphere, as you said. We're a little bit protected by the magnetic field of the Earth still, but it's quite a bit less. Every astronaut, we wear a little radiation monitor on us the whole time. It just looks like looks like a little square of plastic like this that we wear on us that measures radiation. But the effect of radiation, it's very interesting. I'm sure you've seen that too. At night, when your eyes are closed, sometimes you can see cosmic radiation hitting the back of your eye, the retina, and it makes a flash. And in the middle of the night, you see flashes. Maybe every couple minutes, you'll see a flash like that. That's radiation hitting your eyes. Another thing that we think of is when there's sometimes the radiation goes up and down depending on the activity on the sun, and so that may be a reason to be more careful and maybe spend more time in areas of the station that are better protected. One of these is our little bedrooms that has got slightly thicker walls to protect us from radiation.
I understand that Canadian scientists are interested in radiation dosimetry, radiation monitoring, and that a couple of weeks ago you deployed some Canadian monitors throughout the station. Could you tell us a little bit about that experiment?
Yes, it's a very neat experiment using an old-fashioned technology, but it's very, very reliable, and they modernized it. It's called a bubble detector. So the little ampoulas of a substance that when it gets hit by a radiation, it creates a little gas bubble, and it stays trapped into that jelly-like substance. And then with a microscope, you can count the bubbles, and that tells you how many radiation hits there were. So these so-called bubble dosimeters, we spread them around station, and recently my Russian colleague Oleg has used the special equipment to count all these bubbles, and I'm looking forward to hearing the results.
Here at the Canada Aviation and Space Museum, we're looking at the impact of weightlessness and radiation on human health in space, but we're also looking at psychological isolation as well. Are there any health concerns of living in space in such a remote location on your mind, on your well-being?
Yes, you're right. You should never forget about that. And that may be, at the end of the day, the most important aspect of maintaining humans in exploration environments, not just through here, but also people who are on submarines or long distance deployments. So the problem you develop here is that everything is a little bit the same every day. It can be depressing sometimes if you're not careful. You're very, very far away from the people you love on Earth, and that can make you sad, perhaps. You're always with the same people on board, so if conflict arises, it can be you have nowhere to go. You have to face it. So it is a challenge. We prepare a lot for this as astronauts, and I'm sure, Bob, you have stories to tell about that as well. But we go on expeditions on Earth with fellow astronauts for long durations before to get used to this this notion that the most important people right now are the few people who are here with me, and I must get along with them. And that is the key to our success, because we can't function well, of course, if we're not happy, and you cannot be happy if you're not getting along with people around you.
Merci, David, pour cette belle discussion.
Thank you, David, for this discussion, and thank you for sharing your experience.
David, there's a room full of curious students and also media here at the museum. Would you like to hear from them? We have many questions for you.
Go ahead. I always like to answer questions.
Bonjour, David. Quelle est l'application possible?
Hello, David. What is the application and the results you got regarding aging of the population and the equipment you're using on board as well? Yes, it's very interesting to do research, medical research in orbit, because we evolved on Earth for millions of on Earth, and all the systems are balanced, but here everything is unbalanced. Muscles and bones get weaker, and globally it's like an accelerated aging here. And what's interesting, and that all the effects that we are feeling and all the problems that we are developing, it's very similar to what we see on Earth. So the problems that develop very quickly in space, we can study that, and we are like guinea pigs, ideal guinea pigs for this type of research. Thank you very much.
Bonjour, David. My
name is Gavin, and I'd like to ask a question. When you are sick in space, how does your body react? Yes, Gavin. Yes, there are differences in space when we are sick. For instance, if you hit yourself and you're bleeding, the blood is not going to flow, and it stays there. But generally, all the diseases are the same. And here, everybody is trained on board. Of course, I'm a doctor, but not everybody is a doctor. But everybody is trained to answer in case of an emergency, if there is a broken bone, an electrocution. We have antibiotics. And the most important, of course, is to be careful not to become sick when we are in orbit. We are very careful not to get hurt here, and the most important to stay healthy is to be careful and to respect your own body.
Bonjour, David. Mon nom est Audrey, et
Hello, David. I'm Audrey, and I would like also to ask a question. Are there conflicts among astronauts in space sometimes? Very question, Audrey. Yes, of course. When they are human beings and relationships, there are conflicts, of course. Astronauts here in missions, we are like brothers and sisters that love each other, and we like to be together and work together. Sometimes there are conflicts, but it's important to talk and find common ground to bring everything in the right path. Conflicts are part of life. You do not want to ignore them. You have to accept them. And that's something very important, to make sure that there is no hidden conflict and that there is communication and that we talk.
Bonjour David, mon nom est Chloé et voici la question.
Hello David, I'm Chloe and this is my question. What is the most challenging or difficult for you in space? And do you feel lonely? Yes, Chloe. You know, for me, the most difficult is that I have a family. I am a dad. I have 3 kids, and I really miss them. That's the most difficult for me. I'd like to invite people to come here, my family and my friends to come here. So that's the most difficult part, to feel far from the people you love and your life on Earth. But we talk a lot. We do videos, so that we remain in contact, even if it's not a direct contact. It's still an emotional contact.
Bonjour David, mon nom est Lauren.
David, I am Lauren. And my question is, what is cosmic radiation and what does it do to your body? So cosmic radiation are little particles, elementary particles like protons and electrons that come from the back of space or directly from the sun, and that normally we are protected on Earth from the by the atmosphere and this belt. But in space, we are not as protected. It's only the wall of the space station, which is not very thick. And when they hit this radiation, hit our body, they could they could result changes. But if you're not lucky, it could get a cancer started, because there could be genetic changes resulting from them. And that's why we're very careful with cosmic radiation.
Bonjour David.
Hello David. My name is Samuel. And my question is, how do you move and navigate around the ISS? So to move around, it's very different than it is on Earth. Well, like monkeys, we move with our hands, and sometimes with our feet. We actually carry stuff, like I could do that. And I move like this with my hands. And to navigate, the station is not very big, so I know it very well. And you have to recognize where you are, even if you are on the side or upside down. And that's what's the most difficult at the beginning. You're very disoriented, but after a few months, it's very easy.
Bonjour David.
Hello David. My name is Alisa, and this is my question. Back on Earth, what will be the most difficult for you? For example, will you have difficulties walking or running? It will be more difficult to eat and properly digest? When we're back on Earth, there are physical impacts that are quite difficult, I was told. Of course, gravity does brings the blood back to our towards our feet, and we can faint. And at first, it can take a few days or maybe a week to get the blood circulating properly. Here in space, I lost the sense of balance because it doesn't help. It's not useful. But where I come back to Earth, I'm going to have to hold somebody's hand for a few days to avoid falling down. These are the two big differences, and of course problems of pressure. Now I'm doing a lot of exercise with my coach Nathalie, so that I remain strong. Because if you don't exercise in space, you become very weak because everything is very light. Something that is very heavy normally here is very light. So if you want to stay strong, you have to exercise. That's very important.
Hi, David. Elizabeth Howell from Space.com. Probably just like me, you grew up watching Star Trek. What medical technology on the space station is even cooler than what was portrayed in the future on Star Trek? Thanks.
Hey, Elizabeth. Nice speaking to you. Well, actually, as far as medical equipment goes, on the station, we're pretty conservative, I would say. There's very high-tech medical technology on the ground, and that is what we use here. There's sometimes, because we don't have all the equipment we need, we scratch our heads and we invent new methods on station that then are used on the ground. For example, a couple of years ago, people started to think, we don't have an X-ray machine here on space. How could we figure out if someone has a hole in their lungs if they have a big blow to the chest without an X-ray machine? And so we figured out a way in space using an ultrasound machine, because that's all we had. But now that's what we do on Earth to look for punctured lungs. We use an ultrasound machine. So that's one example of an idea developed in space that we can use on the ground. Another cool technology is a shirt that we wear that measures our heartbeat, our body temperature, our blood pressure. And that shirt is a prototype that I've made by a Canadian company that I've tried recently. And so we hope that that will become a very common product. It will be very useful for people who are deployed, who are military, for example, or people who are elderly people who are stuck at home, for whom it's difficult to go to the hospital. They could have their health checked remotely, things like that.
Hello, David. I'm Ananya Vaghela from the Ottawa Citizen. I was just wondering, what's the hardest thing to describe about being in space?
Good question. I think it's that view out of the window, the unbelievable beauty of planet Earth. It is so touching. Every time I open those shutters on the cupola, our viewing observation platform, and I see this beautiful planet. It's just quietly spinning in the black velvet of space with this kind of bright blue halo surrounding it. That's the air that protects us from space and that harbors all the life. And the pattern of clouds and thunder, it's just alive. You can see it. It's almost breathing. It's so beautiful. It just changes my perspective on life to have seen that.
Thank you, David. That's all the time, unfortunately, that we have with you today. Thank you, everyone, for your very thoughtful questions for David. David, thank you for connecting with us. You're a great ambassador for Canada. Stay safe and stay healthy. Goodbye.
Merci beaucoup, Bob. Merci tout le monde. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Canadian Space Agency and participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
you.